Good evening. Today is Tuesday, November 12th, 2019. I would like to call to order our study session meeting of the Gateway School Board of Directors. Would you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have a roll call, Bonnie?
Mr. Bova?
Here.
Mrs. Cerucci?
Here.
Mr. Gottman?
Here.
Mr. Lapsevich?
Here.
Mr. McIntyre?
Present.
Mrs. Neely? Here. Mr. Ritter?
Here.
Mrs. Warning? Here. Mr. Williams?
Here.
Did anyone sign up, Bonnie, for comments on agenda items?
This evening, Bob, Mr. Elms would like to speak on an agenda item.
Welcome, Mr. Elms.
Bob Elms, Monroeville. To talk about the Gateway Middle School renovation, which is on your agenda. And I'm just noticing that the biggest sign in this room with the words on it is Common Sense District. Common Sense 2017 to 2019. On this, I would like to commend the administration and the board for presenting a common sense plan for the utilization of the Gateway Middle School in a district reorganization. And I say that because I just watched your intergovernmental meeting where you were discussing rezoning of the Gateway Middle School again. And that was dropped because there was no plan, and I'm just delighted to see that you finally have a plan, and I hope that when you get to that, you'll follow through on it. That's my hope. Because other than the Gateway High School, the Gateway Middle School has the most valuable assets you have. And I hope you all know that. The auditorium, the gymnasium, the baseball fields, the soccer fields, and the track. You lose that and you've lost something irreplaceable. I would just hope that when you do this, you give us a rough estimate of the cost and have some public hearings about it. I mean, you had public hearings when we discussed, that was a year ago when you had the public hearings. January 2018, you had the intergovernmental meeting. The 2 months after that, you voted to sell the school. So you voted to sell the school.
No, sir. We voted to place the school for sale. Actual selling the school would require a multiple-step public hearings and everything required.
Okay.
Also, an offer that we would have accepted would have been required.
And for the record,
Didn't.
at that time, there most definitely was a plan. There has been a plan in place all along. That plan has changed and altered through time. That has been council's argument that we didn't come in with a plan. That is absolutely false.
I was at that meeting, you had led the meeting, and you offered several plans, but you didn't have a plan that you were pushing at that point.
Correct, because the entire point of placing that building for sale
This
was
is not
to
the
look at
point.
multiple options.
Your point, I would hope this is not going to go anyplace, this discussion you're having right now, because you do have a plan, and that I hope you follow through with that plan. Discussing past whatever is non-productive. You need to move forward with the plan that you have. And I would hope you do that. I will be here waiting to see how you vote on this. Thank you.
And understand, on the agenda tonight is a resolution to move forward just with schematic drawings for the Gateway, renovation of Gateway Middle School.
Right.
There is not a potential cost to that project. That will all be derived from the architect and the drawings coming forward. There will be multiple meetings as we move forward with this. And ultimately, the board in place would make that decision on the scope of the project and how much that would cost.
I think we're going to have more discussion on this, but I think
is
we'll
correct,
wait
yes.
until we get to that item on the agenda.
I would just suggest that when you have the public meetings, you get an article in the Times Express on it, because that generally is what brings more people in than just the notice, because I was looking for your intergovernmental meeting and I missed it. So, thanks.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Holmes. All right, next up is our guest speaker for this evening, Derek Schaffner. Welcome, Derek.
Well, thank you guys for having me, first and foremost. So I'm with the Kids of Steel program, so I'm going to pass around a couple of things for you guys to just kind of like peruse as I give you an overview of the Kids of Steel program. Is anyone familiar with the Kids of Steel program? Know anything about Kids of Steel? Kids Marathon, anyone know anything about that? Okay. Hopefully many of you guys know about the Kids Marathon. It's the largest kids race, kids marathon event in the nation. Right here in Pittsburgh. 7,000 kids we had last year and anticipating on growing even more as our 1 mile kids race leading up into marathon weekend with P3R, so Pittsburgh 3 Rivers Marathon. So as these papers are kind of like working around, I encourage you guys to kind of like look through that. But just for an overview of the Kids of Steel program and primarily why I'm here, it's hopefully to get you guys as school board members on board with the program and having you guys as somewhat of like our cheerleaders for the Kids of Steel program, because we know you guys make the decisions here. Any kind of blessing programmatically will trickle down throughout the elementary and middle schools in the district. So this program is primarily, we're targeting elementary and middle school age students. So with the 4 elementary schools and the 2 middle schools in the district, I think I'm right with that. It would work perfectly for you guys. So currently in the capacity of the Kids of Steel program, we're serving 170 schools throughout Western PA. So the list is shorter of schools that we're not serving than schools that we are. So you guys and your 6 appropriate schools are schools that aren't participating for whatever it may be the reason. So hence why I'm here giving you guys information about it. So the Kids of Steel program is an introductory youth running program. It's absolutely free. So the premise of the program is kids are going to be logging training miles, however that may be, up to 25 and then running the last 1.2 mile with the kids marathon, hence them running a full marathon. So it gives students, families, teachers, everyone an attainable goal or a tangible goal to attain as they're training together. So what the program looks like is it's extremely flexible, the model that we have. It can be implemented with physical education programs, hence the curriculum that I'm passing around to you guys as a before or after school program, or somewhat like a satellite program. So establishing one person, whether that's a physical education teacher at a school, a parent, a PTA member, school board member, or even just a teacher that enjoys running. Them providing information about the trainings and running and logging of miles, so to speak, throughout their training sessions, and then hence leading into the kids marathon running with us. So it's somewhat of a snapshot of the program. Everyone loves to hear, especially you guys, with budget cuts to physical education. We offer grants in various different capacities. So transportation grants with getting kids to the kids marathon, although you guys are right around the corner here. We offer middle school running grants. So if you guys have a cross country team, a track team, we know budget cuts happen. We provide grants via application of that. And then physical education grants to support any novel activity or program that you guys are trying to implement in your physical education classes. Those are up for grabs as well. So really our motive is just to get kids up and active and moving, whether that's running the kids marathon with us or just living a healthy and active lifestyle outside of the things that we provide. So in your packet that you guys received should be like an overview of the program, our impact story, just so you guys can have an overview of our footprint and who we're reaching and how many and the capacity of such, and a curriculum guide is kind of circling, 3 of which are circling around, so you guys can see that there's some legitimacy to this program. It's a formal curriculum that we offer, as I mentioned, the scale of which, and that can be altered and tailored and adapted to any skill, any level, any frequency, so to speak. So, and again, program's free, so everyone likes that as well. So just a wholehearted, kind-hearted way to get your students up and active. I think that's my time, sorry. Long-winded there.
Any questions?
Yeah.
Any questions for Derek?
Other than what can we as a board or as a district do to facilitate spreading the program or whatever?
So Ideally, we just see these things, especially the school boards that I went into previously, school board meetings, it's just like a trickle-down effect. So really just you guys putting your stamp of this is something we support, which at that point I can go to schools and say, this is something that your school board supports. And here are ways that you guys can come aboard, so to speak. So the program's extremely flexible, as I mentioned, the ways that it can be implemented. So it's really just saying that you guys support. And then we'll take the steps necessary from here. You guys don't have to really do anything, just say, we support. But yeah, we'll do all the groundwork of implementing the program here at sites, bringing people aboard, recruiting students, and then grant opportunities that you guys, as I mentioned, for you guys as well. So it's pretty easy, pretty straightforward.
Derek, one quick question. Do
Yeah.
you happen to have a 2 or 3 minute video that we could run on the local cable access station?
Yes, we do.
That shows the kids exercising and whatever it is that your program's about?
Yeah, so we
Could you make that
currently have-
available to us?
Yeah, so we have like an informal, like animated video, just like an overview of the
Doesn't
program.
matter, PowerPoint, actual shots of kids running and jumping,
Yeah.
whatever it is you've got.
Yeah, so we have that now, and we're actually working right now on an impact story for Kids of Steel, just so.
Interview the parents, interview
Yeah.
superintendents, whatever, yeah.
Yep, we're doing that now, but I can send, my card is actually attached to all of your packets there, so just shoot me an email, and I can send that animated video directly to you.
And what's your background?
My background, I actually moved here from Birmingham, Alabama. I was training Olympic and Paralympic athletes in Birmingham. Moved down here, my fiance's from Pittsburgh, so it was kind of like I had to come back. But now I work clearly with P3R with the Pittsburgh Three Rivers Marathon, and I work.
Well, so when are we going to get to meet your girlfriend?
I'll bring her next week, next meeting.
Thank you very kindly, I appreciate it.
Yeah. And again, thank you guys for the opportunity. Feel free to reach out via email. My office and cell number are both on my card, so feel free to
And your
reach out.
website for people watching, if they want, is kidsofsteel.org.
Yep.
Do you have the schools any in this area that are in this program right now?
Propel Pitcairn
Okay.
is in right now. Wilkinsburg Elementary, I think that's pretty close to you guys. I'm still not the most familiar with the area. And then McKeesport Middle and Elementary are both involved as well.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your
Thanks,
time,
guys.
Derek.
Thank you.
All right, moving on, Section B, financial reports, Mr. Schott, take it away.
Section B1 this evening lists the bills for the month of November 2019. Section B2 monthly financial statements for the month of October 2019. And Section B3 budget transfers for the month of November 2019. We present all 3 sections this evening for the board's review.
Are there any questions on the reports for Mr. Schott from any of my fellow board members?
No, ma'am.
Okay, seeing none. Section C, we have no items tabled, so we'll move on to Section D, Mrs. Crump, Personnel Agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Rucci. Presented for your review are next week's items for resignations. We have 5 listed at this time. We have 4 leave of absence, 2 transfers for the collective bargaining agreement. Under employment, we are recommending for the part-time secretary position at the high school is Paula Dragovich. Paula has been a substitute with the district for many years and has proven that she would be a great candidate for that position. We're recommending Bushra Bates for paraprofessional. Bushra has been with us through Kelly Services for the last 90 days and will be coming into our payroll. We're also recommending the extension of the assistant superintendent contracts until June 30th of 2024. Under supplemental contracts, we have 2 resignations, 2 issuance, and we're also requesting the creation of an English as a second language department chair at a stipend of $28.96. We have 5 volunteers, and we also have 41 athletic event workers. That sounds like a lot, but with the change in leadership, we wanted to make sure that we have everybody, so we went and encapsulated everybody for the whole year just to make sure we didn't miss anybody. We're also recommending the salary increase for substitute food service workers to go from $8.50 per hour to $10 per hour. That is from Mr. Lorenzo. And we're also asking for approval of agreement and payment to MCA Systems to purchase the ACA Track software that helps us with the Affordable Care Act.
Any questions for Mrs. Crump?
Why do you need a chair for the second language?
Originally, and I think Mrs. Bungar could probably add more to that one. Originally, it was done by Mr. DeLaCenti. That was one of our principals who had a background in ESL. There's a lot of paperwork that's involved with that, and especially now that our ESL population is growing, we want to be able to, we have supplementals for like the librarian and different things like that. This would be for one of those persons to take over and do the I don't know
Compliance
exact-
issues,
Yeah, the
yeah.
compliance issues with it.
PDE.
Question. Paula Dragovich.
You said till she has been subbing so long, why could we not, if it would be okay with the board, make that an action item so she would be effective immediately? Is there a reason that
We
couldn't
could
be?
do that, we could also even backdate it. The problem had to do with Kelly Services, because she's also drawing their payroll there, so we just need a definitive stop date.
I mean,
if
she
you
has,
wanna-
she has proved to the district, I mean, I've seen her in many schools that,
Done
you
an
know,
excellent job.
why do we need to wait another, 8 days, whatever?
So we can do that as a retroactive, and I can do it effective as of Monday. We've not done our payroll for Kelly Services for this week. The difference is it just delays her check, and so we were trying to be considerate of their financial situations. So I can check with her and find out which is better for her, and if she's okay with that part.
Do we need a motion to make
it an
this,
action item, approve it, and then
Bruce?
you can do what's best for
need a
her.
motion to make this an action item?
I think Val just did. So Val has a motion to make
4A, Paula Dragovich, an action item for this evening. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Rick.
Comments?
Any more comments or discussion before we vote?
Discussion by the audience.
For a part-time or full-time?
It's a part-time position.
The audience gets a chance then.
Is there anyone in the audience who would like to comment? Is there anything else legally we have to do to make this an action item?
You have to vote.
Okay.
Well, we'll just make the effective date to be determined. So once I talk with Paula tomorrow, then we'll update on the agenda to make sure.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I know, I will. Whenever, Bonnie, you're ready.
Mrs. Cerucci?
Aye.
Mr. Gottman?
Aye.
Mr. Lapsevich?
Aye.
Mr. McIntyre?
Aye.
Mrs. Neely?
Aye.
Mr. Ritter?
Aye.
Mrs. Warning?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Bova?
Aye.
Okay.
Now you've made it an
Thank
action
you.
item. Don't you have to vote now? Don't you have to make a motion to approve it?
No, sir. Well,
You made it an
Yeah.
action item.
technically, yes, because that came from, the motion came from a board member.
So a motion's in order to approve what was stated by
That,
the
basically, we just voted in order to
Put it on the agenda.
put
It's
it
an
on
action
the
item.
agenda.
Okay.
Okay, so we have to do it one more time.
I would, I know we're saying, initiate an initial date to be determined. We say not to precede.
It can't precede Monday, because we've already processed Kelly Services payroll for last
Okay.
week, because they pay weekly.
Gotcha. Okay.
All right,
So motion.
now can I have a
Motion.
motion
So moved.
to approve?
Second.
Okay, roll
Mr.
call.
Williams, second.
She's writing. Give her a minute to catch up.
Okay, go ahead.
One more time. Whenever you're ready.
Mr. Gottman?
Aye.
Mr. Lapsevich?
Aye.
Mr. McIntyre?
Aye.
Mrs. Neely?
Aye.
Mr. Ritter?
Aye.
Mrs. Warning?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Bova?
Aye.
Mrs. Cerucci?
Aye.
On Paula's behalf, we thank you.
Thank you.
Motion carries. Okay, are there any other items for discussion in this section before we move on? How about the salary increase for substitute food service workers? Is I assume that he's having trouble getting substitutes?
When we did, we originally changed all the substitutes about 2-3 years ago to a $10, and at that time, they felt that they could not financially afford that. They are having a very hard time getting substitutes, and their payroll status has changed to where he feels he can be able to do that at this time.
So he's planning on maintaining that within his own food service budget, is what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, seeing none, let's move on to section E. Conferences and conventions. We have one action item.
Within Section E, we have one action item for one conference for Rebecca Clemens, Annual Pennsylvania School Counselors Association Conference.
So moved.
Second.
Just so the public knows, it says $270. Roll call.
Mr. Lapsevich?
Aye.
Mr. McIntyre?
Aye.
Mrs. Neely?
Aye.
Mr. Ritter?
Aye.
Mrs. Warning?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Bova?
Aye.
Mrs. Cerucci?
Aye.
Mr. Gottman?
Aye.
Motion carries. Moving on to section F, administrative resolutions.
Dr. Rossi?
Item number 1 is accept the pilot offer from Mystery Science for the remainder of the 1920 school year. That's an online resource for science. Item number 2, we have 13 policies for 30-day display as listed. And item number 3, approve 30-day public display, African American Odyssey 2020 from Pearson Education.
Item number 4, we have facility agreements, AC Sports Atlantic Coast, in the amount of $10,700. Item number 5, AIU Transition Memorandum of Understanding for the 2019-2020 and 2020-2021 fiscal years. Item number 6, Eastern Area Special Schools 2019-2020 budget.
Item number 7, annual approval of the district's management's discussion and analysis, or MD&A, for the 18-19 fiscal years depicted in Exhibit C. Item number 8 is the acceptance of district donations received during the 1920 fiscal year, specifically Benzold Pretzel Company, 1,575 bags of pretzels, Jennifer Hoffner Backpack Program at University Park Elementary School. And the second item, Spitzer Auto World Monroeville, check for $21,500. Justin Stevens, School Police Vehicle Lease, and completion of the Science Lab for Gateway High School. Item number 9, approve the district's new participation in the Interlocal Purchasing System, or TIPS, Cooperative Purchasing Group for the purchase of applicable items during the 1920 fiscal year. Item number 10, approve the district's continued participation in the Western Pennsylvania Electricity Consortium for the purchase of electricity from Direct Energy, the current vendor, or a new vendor to be determined based on pricing to be received from up to 6 major electric suppliers, only if the price is at or below the district's current price. The extension to the original agreement with Direct Energy or the new contract with a new vendor will begin on the meter read date in January 2021 for a period of 12, 24, or 36 months, and the price will include all costs except distribution and other related delivery utility charges as contained in either the original or the new agreement. Note, district is currently participating in the Allegheny Merit Unit number 3's Western Pennsylvania Electricity Consortium through January 2021. Currently, 38 of 42 Allegheny County school districts and 4 vocational technical schools participate in the consortium. The district's current price for electricity is 5.600 cents per kilowatt hour, which includes the PA gross receipts tax. Item number 11, approve and authorize the district's administration to proceed with the preliminary schematic planning with the district's architect of record and the corresponding preliminary capital acquisition options with the district's bond underwriter associated with required capital renovations and capital improvements to the Gateway Middle School for the creation of a new district grade 5 through grade 8 school building. Note, the district will be required to issue new bonds to acquire funds for the payment of the necessary capital renovations and capital improvements to the Gateway Middle School. A real estate tax millage increase will be required by the district to pay for the new debt service payments associated with the issuance of the new bonds. The district intends to close the Mosside Middle School at the conclusion of the construction required to complete the capital renovations and capital improvements to the Gateway Middle School. It is anticipated there will be expenditure reduction savings resulting from the consolidation of 2 school buildings into 1 school building, which will be utilized by the district to help offset the increase in fiscal year debt service payments. Subsequent resolutions will be presented by the administration to the board for consideration, specifically related to the approval for the issuance of new bond debt, the approval for the submission of construction documents to the Pennsylvania Department of Education, the approval to bid the capital project, and the approval to award the base bid, as well as any applicable bid ordinance related to the final scope of the approved capital project.
Any questions or comments for Mr. Schott? Start with you, Mr. Bova.
Well, very well said, Mr. Schott, on item number 11. And Mr. Elms kind of started the conversation about our middle schools and the plan. This process has been going on for, Dr. Short, you want to give us a number?
5 years?
A whole lot longer than that. Yeah, 7, 8 years.
So, I mean, just for anyone who's still paying attention, basically when a school district needs to either build or make a significant upgrade to schools, it's either because they're expanding, they've run out of space, or the buildings have no longer been able to do the job. if it's option one, that means typically that the district's growing and the money's growing, the revenues are growing, the tax base is growing, all that wonderful stuff. We're in an odd situation where we have two middle schools that are roughly at 50% capacity. And Dr. Short and this board and boards before it have been trying to figure out the best way to utilize both the buildings and the space to teach our kids, while saving as much money as possible. And none of it's easy. We've had tons of options presented. There aren't any really good or bad ones. The question is, how much debt do we want to accrue while we're making this decision? And we've heard about the age of the schools, the condition of the schools. I couldn't agree more with what you said about that particular property. If you were looking for a property to make a middle school, that has everything. It's got athletic fields, it's got big classrooms, it's got an auditorium. It's unfortunately, not been as well maintained perhaps as it might have been, which has put us in this corner. So this gives us an opportunity to proceed as intelligently as possible with the next steps without locking this board, or of course the new board coming in, into any particular decision. So we're not locked in financially, we're not locked into a particular solution to this problem. But lots of folks are working diligently to get us to the best solution. And transparency is what everyone loves to talk about. Dr. Short's hosted a number of meetings, and we've been taken to task for somehow not publicizing those well enough. Not by you, by other folks. So I guess going forward, Dr. Short, we've got a nice scoreboard. Maybe you could put it up there. I don't know how you tell folks that we're having this conversation.
You can actually see it from Route 22.
Well, there you go. So, get the word out. This conversation's been literally going on for years, and both residents and any other stakeholders have had every opportunity to come forward and say, here's what I think. You know how many people have come to me in the last 2 years to say what they thought? You were, first here tonight. So, it's one thing to complain at the Panera, but if you actually want to have some input, show up and do what you just did. Tell us what you think. So.
And I think I would just add that, going through your options takes time. And when you're looking at all of us in this position to be responsible for deciding how much money we're going to spend on a building renovation or a new building, all of us want to do our due diligence to research those options. And one of those options was seeing if there was any value in that beautiful piece of property over there that you mentioned at Gateway Middle School, to see if we could sell it to put that toward a new building. And we learned that option. Sometimes you have to try something and before you know its value, and we got an answer. Unfortunately, it took a year, but I don't regret finding out that answer. I think it's all parts of the piece of the puzzle, and I think we're all just trying to do our due diligence to make good decision. And as far as moving things fast, that doesn't happen when you're closing schools or building schools. And it doesn't happen when your board changes every 2 years either. So we're going to try to do our best to keep things moving forward and keep trying to get numbers and information to the public and let the public have their input throughout the entire process, whatever direction we go.
Thank you, Mary Beth. Well stated. And I think for the public, they need to understand that, and our constituents, this process, if the board chooses to move forward with this resolution next week, would take time. And we're looking at Axis Architecture Group, which we've met probably a half dozen times, looking at the feasibility study and speaking with the principal and teachers as well. It could take probably a year for schematic drawings and just an idea of almost an a la carte list of what it would cost. At that point in time, we would be presenting all this information in public meetings, and ultimately this board, meaning the next board, would, hello there, be the responsible ones knowing if we want to move forward with this or not. So the process could take a year and a half before even a shovel gets in the ground. So I want everyone to know that this is not something that, would be affecting the 2021 school year. This would be impacting potentially the 21-22 school year at best. So we're still a long ways away And that's where, the planning, as Mrs. Cerucci said, takes time. And the architects have been meeting with myself, Assistant Superintendents Bob Brown, everyone moving forward. And we just want the official resolution, either yea or nay, to allow us to put to bed the idea of selling Gateway Middle School and move forward with the renovation of Gateway Middle School.
Mary Beth, could I just make a note about the use of the term plan versus the use of the term steps? Those are two different concepts. We've gone through many, many steps, and at each step, there are branches, logical branches that you have to take based on where you are at the moment. So to say to us, to any school board, show us the plan, I think what they mean is show us the steps. So we are at a step now different than we were a year ago, and we've got different options, different knowledge, different studies that have been done, different surveys that have done, all of which begin to weigh in. So to say we haven't had a plan, I think is incorrect. We have a plan. It's a stepwise plan to consider what best, like Jack said, to do for the students and what best to do with the citizens' money. And we're following that.
Very well said, Mr. Ritter, thank you. Anyone else?
I have a question. Item 1, this would be for Dr. Rossi. I'm just kind of curious, what is the mystery science pilot, and is that exclusive just for one elementary school or for all of elementary?
It was requested by several elementary teachers, so once it got to that point, we just thought, since they reached out, that we'd make it a district-wide pilot. So it's an online resource for teachers to utilize at no cost for the school year.
Okay.
One. Yeah, question, Mr. Shaw, Dr. Short, on number 8. It says completion of the science lab. Is it the science lab or computer science lab?
It would be computer science
Okay.
lab, yeah.
Could that just be changed so we know that it's?
Correct.
Thank you.
I would just like to verbally thank Benzel Pretzel Company and Spitzer Auto for their
Those
generous
pretzels, that's
donations
fine, yeah.
to our students and our school. It is greatly appreciated.
Generous.
We totally appreciate the support of our community because our community has been very supportive of a lot of things here at Gateway. Anyone else? Okay, move on. Are there any resolutions by board members that are not on the agenda? Nope. We'll move on to comments from residents on non-agenda items. Would anybody in the audience like to address the board? Nope. Okay, let's move on to reports. Start with you, Dr. Chaky.
Just a quick equity report. The GSD Equity Committee's been meeting monthly. One of the things that we talked about at our last meeting was, in order to attain our goal, which, I've talked with Dr. Short and Dr. Rossi and the whole committee about, is we want to be able to establish systemic change in regard to equity. We want the systemic, permanent improvement. So regardless of who's sitting in these chairs, we have systems in place that we can continue to focus around equity, and we can make it better for groups that we need to make it better for. We believe that begins with establishing and implementing a Gateway School District equity policy. So the committee's been discussing that. We've been reviewing the equity statement from PSBA. We've also taken a look at some districts around that have an equity policy. Interesting, though, only 5 districts within the state have an established equity policy. So soon we're going to be the 6th.
Good.
So we're excited about that. We also have been using, I mentioned previously that we have our school equity teams that have been meeting regularly. And we don't want to, like I said before, we want to make sure that we're in the action mode and not the theory mode. So we're excited that they're meeting, but we want to make sure that, A, we know what the agenda is, and B, we have an established protocol to get some things done. So we've adopted this equity lens approach model, and it breaks it down into 5 different steps. First, they're reviewing the data. Second, they're looking at why the disparity exists. Third, they're looking at, are there different groups that are missing in the conversation about whether or not the disparity exists. Then they're looking at how to resolve this disparity. Then the fifth goes into the phase where, okay, now we're going to take action. We're going to talk about what policy needs to go into place, maybe what practice, or whatever we need to do to take full advantage for our students. So we have that. We also have, we created the Gateway School District Google Classroom for all the school level teams. They're posting an agenda, so there's a lot of communication going back and forth. People are using each other as resources, but staying in line with all of our equity work. So we're excited about what we're accomplishing. The other aspect of it too is reaching out to the community. We're going to be in contact again with the Gateway School District Community Advisory Panel, which we talked about last year. And we're also going to, we're planning an equity committee meeting in the evening, which is going to be tentatively January 16th. We have a lot of planning to go with that, and a lot more details will come out soon.
Great, thank you. Appreciate that. Dr. Rossi,
Nothing at this time.
do you have anything else? Mr. Schott?
Nothing further, thank you.
Mrs. Crump, who we hiring?
We are accepting applications for paraprofessionals and school police.
Anything else?
Not at this time, but always check our website.
Mr. Ritter?
Yes, there was a general election held last week. We have some of the actual winners here in the audience. We'd like to congratulate the Reverend Dr. Scott Gallagher, Susan Delaney, and Paul Cagliari, fresh meat for the school board. And I have about 20 of you guys' signs still in my trunk, so stop by my trunk afterwards and take what's yours. And congratulations. That's all I have.
Thank you. Mrs. Warning?
Congratulations also to the new board members and re-elected board members. A lot of work ahead. And I think you'll be ready for it. Friday night coming up, I would suggest, I know it's going to be cold and it's in Greensburg, but it's Offutt Field in Greensburg. Gateway will be playing the semifinals against McKeesport, which is one of our rivalries. We've already beat them this year. These kids have really worked hard, and watching them, I think, Mr. Lapsovich, you could okay with this one too. 30 seconds left in the game Friday night. It was like deja vu what happened last year, and you're sitting here thinking, please, no penalties, nothing, because we lost it last year because of a penalty. But these kids just were so straight and so excited with that 30-second countdown, and puts them into the semifinals. So I'm just wishing Don Hall, the coach, all these coaches, football team, good luck. We'll be there to cheer you on, dress warm, and the school store at the high school has Gateway gear if anybody needs to buy anything to show your support of the team. So it will be live online, streaming with HSSN, Trib Live. It'll be streamed live, so you can follow the game there. And on a personal note, I know this was brought up in executive session, which is not executive material, so I can talk about it. I'm concerned about the lack of common courtesy and civility between our board members. I in particular did not appreciate Mr. McIntyre in our executive session using the F word directed towards me, and also his middle finger gesture also towards me. With everyone sitting at this table right now, with the exception of Ms. Isha, you're all present when this occurred, and no one said a word. And I just wondered if anybody's thoughts if this is okay. Should it continue? With new board members coming on shortly, I would hope we would present ourselves a little bit more professionally. And that's all I have to say.
I think we all agree with that, Val, and I think you don't know what conversations were had after, and I think that what you failed to mention was that he apologized to you in the back room this evening for his behavior.
And you refused to even make eye contact
And I
or
said,
engage in the conversation.
and I said because there was a leak, because it came out. We went over a week with this happening. I don't need to talk about it anymore. This isn't the first time that it happened. I've had enough of it. I am an adult. I don't need that kind of language. My kids don't talk like that. We're supposed to be setting examples for students. That is not an example to set, especially to an adult. And that's all I have to say.
Sbss?
Nothing this evening.
Mr. Bova?
Well, that can't go. First of all, when that happened, it was unfortunate, way too emotional, and I actually did say something to Mr. McIntyre about that outburst then. So first of all. Secondly, in terms of setting an example for the children would have never known that such a word was used if you hadn't just made it public. So it's a peculiar message you're attempting to send. Hopefully, there will be more civility amongst this group as you go forward. It really doesn't matter. I mean, you can argue behind closed doors. You can even argue out here. The business of the school is still going to get done. Rarely when you get 9 people together, they all love each other and get along perfectly. So when you, though, air the things that happen in there publicly, which has happened repeatedly, at that point, I'm afraid the rules change. So that's all I have to say.
Yeah, my hand. Bruce.
You know,
I'm gonna skip you.
Good big
I'm
sigh.
gonna
That
skip you
was
till
like-
last. Let's go to you, Mr. Goldman.
Alright, we'll change what's been talked about here. I think a couple weeks ago, I got to attend the memorial service for the members who were, we lost at the Tree of Life shooting. I was with Mr. Ritter for that. I did have to say it was a very nice service. So with it on a Saturday, normally you light one candle, but for the 11 that we lost, they lit 11 individual candles and had a moment to speak about each person. And the emotions in the room, like, even though it's been a year ago, people are still brought to tears just hearing about this. And you know, we've had not just the members of the school board, we've had council there, we've had even our first responders there, and just the unity this community has shown since then has been tremendous. And even I'll be thinking for even high holidays, you know, nobody was afraid to go to the synagogue. Even knowing what happened a year ago, people still showed up for Rosh Hashanah, they showed up for Yom Kippur, people still show up just for a regular Saturday service. So it was very overwhelming to see this support, and there's lack of fear from this, that we're still going to continue our day-to-day activities, and we're not going to let anybody stop us from doing what we want to do. So I do want to thank the Tree of Life, the Temple David for hosting that. And even though it's a day late, but I do know a couple of veterans who work for Gateway, so I'd like to say thank you for your service to the veterans of Gateway and for our veterans of Monroeville.
Very nice, Mr. Goldman. Thank you. Mr. Williams.
Nothing this evening.
Mrs. Nealon.
Hi. I just want to thank Jack and Rick and John for carrying through the intergovernmental meeting for me in my absence. I chose to not attend the meeting because I felt that there should be school board members there that will be in continuance through the next years to continue the intergovernmental. I think it was a good meeting. I watched it online. John, do you want to give a little recap? You talked about the buildings, you talked about the SRO, which I think we've done enough talking about the buildings. There was a little bit of misunderstanding between the municipality and the school district that we didn't have a plan. Well, we had a plan, as Dr. Short had clearly said. But the SRO, do you want to kind of report where we're at with that, working with the municipality on that?
We're going to have another intergovernmental committee meeting sometime soon, and we'll go over more of the details of that then.
Okay. All right. But they talked about the SRO and they're working with the Monroeville on that also. So, other than that, that's it.
Thanks, Mr. Nealon. Do you want anything, Mr. McIntyre?
Yeah, I feel like I have to respond in some way, and I've been sitting there trying to calm down a little bit, but as far as setting an example for our children, personally, I would hope that if somebody did make a mistake and they acknowledge that mistake and they seek forgiveness for that mistake, I think the right thing to teach our children is to make at least eye contact with that person, hear them out. And if that's done behind closed doors, I think that's, if it's offered behind closed doors, you accept it behind closed doors, because that's where the offense happened. I think dismissing and refusing to hear that planned apology, that's why I cleared the room of the administration. You can ask Mary Beth, I had this intention for a week. I've made it clear that I wanted to address the board and the board in general to apologize for using the language I used. Anybody who knows me knows that it's amazing I haven't dropped a few words sitting here at this chair. It's something I work on and I struggle with, and I'm trying to do better. But to take that apology back there and literally not even look at me or attempt to have the conversation so that you can do it out here, that is, I think, equally as egregious as me using a dirty word in that back room. And that's all I have to say.
Okay, let's end that conversation and let's close with Dr. Short's superintendent report.
Oddly enough, the temperature, if you've noticed within the last 48 hours, has dramatically changed. 2 days ago, we're looking out the window, myself, Dr. Rossi, Dr. Shaky, and marveling at a 65-degree day. Sun is out, beautiful day, and then you wake up this morning, and prior to me leaving, I texted Bonnie, Janet, and Micah and said, well, from the weather report, let's just make sure we're all standing by our cell phones in the morning at 4:30, and that's the time we typically get up and all coordinate and talk to one another to see if the roads are clear. And I looked out the window this morning and there was snow on the ground. And sure enough, winter is here. So I would advise all parents, guardians, children to make sure that they have their cell phones, check the weather, news stations in the morning. The temperature could drop a little bit overnight. You never know when that 2-hour delay will come in. So that's all I have for tonight. Thank you.
All right,